Hi guys, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how to make cannolis, and the recipe I'm going to show you is a Sicilian recipe for the shell and kind of my own recipe for the filling. This pastry was originated in Sicily, and when it's made its way to United States, New York to be exact, each Italian and non-Italian family tried to make their own recipe for the cannolis. Therefore, there are so many different varieties of the cannolis. I am going to show you a traditional Sicilian recipe for the shell, but I am going to show you slightly different recipe for the filling. So let's get started. Now this recipe is for 40 cannoli shells. If you're not planning to make that many, just divide your recipe in half. We're gonna need 4 cups of flour, half a cup of powdered sugar, 100 grams of butter, 2 egg yolks, 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, 2 tablespoons of Marsala wine, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of cocoa powder, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of salt, and a little bit of cold water. First, you need to sift all your dry ingredients into a large mixing bowl. A lot of people prefer to make cannoli dough in a food processor, but I prefer to make it by hand. This way you can control the texture of the dough. Then we're going to add our butter, 2 egg yolks, and we're going to add 2 very traditional ingredients, which is vinegar and Marsala wine. Vinegar is added to the dough so the dough stays much crispier, and Marsala wine added to this dough for just a very unique taste. We need to mix this dough until fine crumbs, and then we're gonna start adding cold water until our dough comes together in the bowl, and we're gonna form a little log out of it. And we're gonna cut this log into 2 halves. We're gonna make or form 2 discs, wrap it in the Serrano wrap, and refrigerate this dough for at least an hour. To make cannoli shells, you are gonna need this cannoli molds. They're usually little metal tubes that come in a set of either 6, 12, or 18. Mine was a set of 18, and as a bonus it came in with this cutting ring. And we're gonna put a little bit of flour, not a lot, just a little dust of flour on the working surface. We're gonna give ourselves a pastry brush and a little bit of that leftover egg white that's gonna serve us as a glue to glue our dough to our cannoli forms. And we're gonna roll out the cannoli dough very thin, almost like a paper thin. And then we're gonna start cutting out those circles. And what I would suggest you guys do, you're gonna have a lot of scrap dough from this cutting out your cannolis. I would suggest you using it only once after you gathered all your scrap dough, because otherwise it's gonna be much tougher than the original dough that you rolled out. And the rest of it is pretty simple. We're just gonna take the metal tube, we're gonna put a little bit of egg white to the edges of the dough, we're gonna press the dough firmly, and this is a little trick. We're gonna flick these little corners of the dough. First of all, it's gonna help us to unmold the cannoli shells, and also gonna give it a little pretty look to it and sort of like an original cannoli look to it. Then in a small pot, add about 1.5 inches of cooking oil, and I'm using a peanut oil because that oil does not burn very fast, and you need to keep your temperature at 350 Fahrenheit and 175 Celsius, and that's the best temperature to fry up your cannoli shells. And keep checking your temperature in between so it doesn't go too low, it doesn't go too high, and your cannolis all look the same. So as they start to brown a little bit, turn them, and then cook them for another 2 minutes on both sides, and your cannoli shells are pretty much ready. You just need to take them out and put them on the paper towel to cool, and then go on with frying up the rest of your cannoli shells. And I would suggest you only fry up maybe 2 at a time. When they cool down, you can remove those tubes and let your shells cool completely. Now let's talk about the filling. I am going to use the farmer's cheese, and the reason I'm using it instead of the ricotta cheese. Ricotta cheese, you need to drain it overnight to get rid of all this moisture. The farmer's cheese, such as Russian tvorog, does not have a lot of moisture, and it's nice and smooth. So for the filling, we're gonna need 1 pound of farmer's cheese, 3 to 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar, a cup and a half, 3/4 cup of heavy cream, 1 tablespoon of dry lemon peel or zest of 1 lemon, and I am gonna use some limoncello to this filling. You know, just buzz it up. Unless you have small kids, then I wouldn't use any alcohol. So we're just gonna add a little bit of powdered sugar to our farmer's cheese. We're gonna combine the two, and then we're gonna start adding our heavy cream, and you don't need to mix it too much, just until it's nice and smooth. Then we're gonna start adding other ingredients by hand. I'm gonna use that dried lemon peel, which I really love because it adds a very intense lemon flavor. And I'm gonna start adding a little bit of limoncello, and you're gonna taste it. Just make sure it's not overpowering. And if you're happy with the taste of your filling, it's ready to go into a piping bag. Now you need to fill up your cannoli shells from both ends, and only right before you serve your cannolis. If you make your filling in advance, or made your cannolis in advance and serve them next day, they're not going to be as crispy. So I would suggest you fill them up right before you serve them. And of course you can decorate it. You can put some cherries at the end. And the final touches are gonna be your powdered sugar. Now I'm supposed to taste my cannolis and tell you how wonderful they taste, but I know that, but you guys don't until you try this wonderful recipe. And once again, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.